China versus the United States. Who is the true beacon of civilization? After many years, China and the United States once again stand at a historical crossroads. The whole world is watching this final contest, wondering who will emerge victorious, and who truly deserves the title of beacon of civilization. Currently, public focus is mainly on Sino-US conflicts and global crises, failing to see the path for future development. Today, we will analyze the fundamental differences between China and the United States in their social development directions, and how they can escape their current predicaments. Finally, we will judge who can become the first civilized nation recognized by history. First, the biggest difference between the United States and China is that the United States relies on its high-tech industry to drive national economic development, while China promotes national development throughout the richness and improvement of its entire industrial chain. This is the most core distinction. Many people believe cultural values, social systems, social wealth structure, or the proportion of the middle class are the important core factors. These ideas are actually incorrect. The core driving force of social development is actually the upgrading of the industrial network. This has been true from ancient times to the present, because unlike expansion, prosperity, and upgrading of the industrial chain can fundamentally break through the limits of our own human labor capacity. This is what I repeatedly call the external resource production system. Friends who have watched my videos understand this concept. Therefore, the industrial network is the core power engine for enhancing society's resource production capacity. Other aspects, such as consumption, demographic structure, and the middle class proportion, can only affect whether the circulation of resources after production is efficient and smooth. They are not the engine itself. From this perspective, China possesses the world's most complete industrial chain, which means its developmental foundation and core driving force are stronger than those of the United States. This provides China with a strategic advantage above by any other country in the world. Even if the entire world decouples from China, China can still achieve long-term stable development on its own. At this point, many might say, no matter how complete China's industrial chain is, it's useless. Once decoupled from the world, China simply cannot afford to consume the vast quantity of goods it produces. Furthermore, even without decoupling, periodic economic crises are unavoidable. This line of thinking is wrong. They only see the result that capital expansion inevitably leads to market supply exceeding market demand, but they have not truly considered how to fundamentally solve this problem. Actually, the reasoning is very simple. Let's take an example. During an economic boom, suppose the total value of all goods in the market is $10, but the total consumption capacity of all people in society is only $8. What happens? Businesses can only lower prices, follow would be layoffs. People then have even less money, leading to further price cuts, a vicious cycle, and an economic crisis erupts, because supply exceeded demand. Actually, solving this problem is very simple. The correct remedy is distribution. Following this example, if the market cannot consume the extra $2 worth of resources, then the government should redistribute the seller's excess $2 worth of resources. $1 worth of resources remains with the seller, and the other $1 worth is directly and freely distributed to consumers. This way, businesses have $9 worth of goods, and buyers also have $9 in purchasing power. Businesses don't need to lay off staff to survive, may even have profits to continue developing, and buyers don't face unemployment. Instead, they freely obtain more resources, and their standard of living actually improves. Supply and consumption also maintain a balanced relationship. Thus, the economic crisis is resolved. This method of distribution is what I repeatedly discussed in my previous videos, the calculation formula for the amount of social resources to be freely distributed. The distribution amount X must be greater than minus A divided by 2. Furthermore, this distribution mechanism itself can suppress inflation. If a business raises prices indiscriminately, it means its profits are higher, and thus the amount of resources that need to be freely distributed increases. Therefore, if a business wants to truly develop, it can only rely on solidly expanding market demand. See, the market's invisible hand cannot solve the crisis it creates itself. The correct remedy is the free distribution of resources. This is also the reason I have been calling for reforms to the social resource distribution system in my previous videos. The biggest obstacle to such reform lies in stubborn social culture. Currently, all social cultures tend to view free distribution as fostering laziness, as getting something for nothing, as taking money from businesses, and as violating private property. Every country is trapped by this dogma. They forget the original purpose of social development to make the living conditions of every individual better, to put money and resources in people's hands, enabling them to live dignified and free lives, and to pursue the life they truly desire. Therefore, this cultural dogma is also what I have repeatedly criticized in my previous videos. The backwardness of social culture hinders social development. The path of social development I described above is currently the only known method capable of continuously increasing people's income and ultimately completely liberating them from the bondage of labor. No other sociological theory can achieve this. Thesis: the practical solution, derived from meta-sociological theory I present in my book Civilization, the dual core laws of civilizational evolution. Returning to the China-US contest, we can see that because China possesses the most complete industrial chain, its foundational momentum is strong. Therefore, as long as it can resolve its social cognitive issues and fundamentally adjust its resource distribution system, it can avoid periodic crises and achieve sustainable development that continuously improves the living standards of its people. The United States problem is more severe. Although technologically advanced, its focus is on the high-tech sector, and its industrial network is incomplete. This determines that it cannot separate from the external international market, and the American public does not have much demand for the high-tech industry itself. Therefore, combining this with the only viable development path mentioned earlier, the US problem lies in the hollowing out of its domestic industrial ecosystem, which has detached its resource production from the needs of its ordinary citizens. This makes the United States more like a supplier for international buyers, rather than a nation where, as its name suggests, the people are united in creating a better life. In other words, although US technology is advanced, it does not benefit all its people. Its social development path has deviated. Compared to China, the United States is one step behind in the process of social development. China has already completed the construction of a full industrial chain. The next step is to modify its resource distribution rules. The United States, however, not only needs to modify its resource distribution rules but also needs to repair its hollowed-out industrial network. There are two ways to accomplish this repair. First, the US could rely on its own strength to build a complete domestic industrial ecosystem, but this requires it to significantly enhance the production efficiency of low-end industries. Otherwise, they cannot survive in the US high-cost environment. The second way is to jointly build an alliance-based industrial ecosystem with other developed countries, avoiding the challenge of upgrading low-end industries alone. Through these two methods, the United States might be able to establish an industrial ecosystem more advanced than China's. Coupled with correct distribution rules, the American people could then obtain a large amount of free resources, greatly enhancing their living standards. However, please note, industrial reconstruction might be accomplished in years or decades, whereas the transformation of social culture could take hundreds or thousands of years. Therefore, the key to victory in this great contest between China and the United States does not lie in technology, nor in the industrial chain, but in cultural awakening. China and the United States, whichever first realizes the limitations of its own culture, whichever first breaks through the ideological prison of free distribution is evil, and bravely carries out reforms of its distribution system, will be the first to break into the second civilizational stage. This is the advanced social stage where people begin to obtain resources freely from the industrial system. That nation will then become the first in human history where its people no longer need to rely entirely on labor to sustain their existence. And it will take a crucial step towards the ultimate stage of social development, the third civilizational stage where AI fully takes over production, and people can obtain abundant resources without need for labor at all. The first nation to enter the second civilizational stage will be the deserving beacon of civilization. It will guide humanity onto a path of hundreds of millions of years of sustained prosperity, capable of avoiding almost all risks of self-destruction. Therefore, we are waiting to see the battle for this ultimate glory. Either one side completes its cultural awakening and leads humanity into eternal prosperity, or both sides remain trapped in old perceptions, heading towards human self-destruction amidst repeated crises, wars, environmental pollution, and social fragmentation. Will they choose glory or destruction? We are waiting to see.